Welcome to another study style session for the BJCP training program from the Brewers Anonymous Homebrew Club. We are looking at our very last subcategory in Category 2 International Lager, and that is 2C International Dark Lager. All right, let's get started where we always do. The vital statistics for 2C International Dark Lager. We have original gravity range of 1.044 to 1.056. Final gravity range of 1.008 to 1.012, IBU range of 8 to 20, SRM range of 14 to 30, and an ABV range of 4.2 to 6%. All right, let's move on to the overall impression before we start taking a look at the characteristics that we're going to judge against. Overall impression in the guidelines for 2C says a darker, richer, and somewhat sweeter version of International Pale Lager with a little more body and flavor, but equally restrained in bitterness. The low bitterness leaves the malt as the primary flavor element, and the low hop levels provide very little in the way of balance. All right, so now those characteristics of the beer, the aroma, appearance, flavor, and mouthfeel that we're going to break down, put on the side of the screen here, and those are the things we're going to compare this beer against, starting with aroma. Faint malt aroma, medium low roast and caramel malt aroma optional, light spicy herbal or floral hop aroma optional, clean fermentation profile. On appearance, deep amber to very dark brown with bright clarity and ruby highlights. Foam stand may not be long lasting and is beige to light tan in color. Going on to flavor, we have low to medium sweet maltiness, medium low caramel or roasted malt flavor optional, possibly with hints of coffee, molasses, brown sugar, or cocoa. Low floral, spicy, or herbal hop flavor optional. Low to medium bitterness, may have a very light fruitiness. Moderately crisp finish, the balance is typically somewhat malty. Burnt or moderately strong roasted malt flavors are inappropriate. And then finally, mouthfeel, light to medium light body, smooth with light creaminess, medium to high carbonation. And we want to know a commercial example. Well, we want to know all the commercial examples of this, but we want one for this session if we can find it. And we have a pretty decent list to choose from. Commercial examples for 2C are Baltica No. 4 Original, Dixie Black and Voodoo, Heineken Dark Lager, St. Pauli Girl Special Dark, San Miguel Dark, and Shiner Bock. And I'm going to fully admit, reading this list, I was like, I think most of these beers aren't being made anymore. I was quite surprised to find out that's not true. It turns out they're just apparently not anywhere in Florida, because I've not seen a couple of these I wanted to try, and a couple of these I've actually enjoyed, particularly the Dixie Black and Voodoo. I cannot find that in Florida, but according to the 6-second search, it was even not long on the internet I did, it's still being made. That could be wrong. But I have a commercial example for this one. It's Shiner Bock. Oh, there it is. Shiner Bock. And every time I see this, there's a guy in this group, this new media group, production group that's doing these videos that loves Shiner Bock. So this one's for you, Tim. And he will never, ever see this video. All right. Let's do a camera pour. I think I'm getting better at this. I'm not sure. You let me know. I don't know. That wasn't as aggressive. I should have kept my mouth shut. I got too cocky. All right. So color. Well, having just read that I think dark amber was kind of the start of the range, that's where it is. I'd expect it to be darker just by name alone, but that's a reason why we study these guidelines. We don't want to leave all those over 100 styles just to our memory. We need to refresh our memory. So I believe this is appropriate. We're going to find out here very shortly. I do have the study card here. I didn't mention that. Head is starting to dissipate, but it was slightly off-white. It was about medium low, but it was also a bad pour. So I'm going to try that again when I get to actually filling out my score sheet. For aroma, ooh, very, very caramely. Little bit of graininess, little bit of like an herbal hop, almost a bordering on vegetable, but not quite there. What else am I getting? I'm getting something else in there. It might be esters. Not quite sure. It's not a lager type yeast character. I might say it's a stone fruit of some sort. Maybe like a Not an apple or cherry, maybe closer to pear or white peach. Okay, well, let's go on to flavor. Okay. Almost the complete opposite of what I just said. That's where the malt character is coming through. I'm getting that graininess, that base malt, little bit of base malt sweetness without it being anywhere near cloying. That caramel aroma that was quite strong is very restrained in the flavor, but it's still there. Definitely no roast or toast character, and I wouldn't actually expect that by the visual, but you don't judge it by that when it comes to flavor. The bitterness is mostly pronounced on the finish and then just goes away. There's almost nothing in the aftertaste. The only thing in the aftertaste is that grainy character, which is interesting. Mouthfeel. Let me take another sip. Definitely light, not thin, light to medium light, in between the two, and highly carbonated for sure. No real texture to it. It's smooth, but I wouldn't quite call it bordering up on creamy. Maybe a very light, velvety type texture, but we're talking really, really faint here. So, all right. Like I said, I've got my study card here, International Dark Lager. How close was I without revisiting this? So faint malt aroma, okay. Medium, low, roast and caramel optional. Well, it was definitely not medium low. Light, spicy, herbal, floral hop. Yep, clean fermentation. I would say it's a clean fermentation, even if there is an ester character. It wasn't overwhelming. And I'm still not sure that's what it was. Maybe the flavor wheel will help me. We'll see. Appearance, deep amber to very dark brown with ruby highlights. I guess that's deep amber. That is barely deep amber. That is like, that it almost feels like deep amber is written to include this in their commercial examples because it's so lighter than what I expected. Okay, anyway, beige to light tan head. That may not last. It was approaching beige and it didn't last. Flavor, low to medium sweet maltiness. Yeah, okay. Yeah, medium to low caramel, roasty flavors optional. It's definitely flavor for the caramel is quite less noticeable than the aroma. Low floral, spicy herbal hop optional. Low to medium bitterness. Sure, I'd say that's what I got. Balances somewhat to malty. Absolutely. Burnt or moderately strong roast. Inappropriate. Didn't get any of that. Mouthfeel, light to medium light body. Okay. I'm sure it was in my head from just reading the guidelines, but that is exactly how I would describe it. Smooth with a light creaminess and medium to high carbonation. All right. I've just reviewed this. It's in my head. I'm going to take that. I'm going to take my pencil and take my score sheet and my flavor wheel, and I want you to do the same. And with this being the last of category 2, let's do something else with this. Nothing crazy. Don't get too worried about what I'm about to say. We're allotted 15 minutes per beer. Well, okay. Average 15 minutes per beer when we take our judging exam. If we go over or under, we don't get kicked out. But the average is 15 minutes per beer to judge it. So along with picking at least one term from the flavor wheel when you judge this beer, let's try to get our score sheets done within 15 minutes. If you're not done and you're still writing, it's more important to get the practice in of completing your score sheet than doing it under 15 minutes. But let's try. It's our last one for category 2. It's been a pretty good category, except for maybe the first example we tried. So let's go out with a little bit of an extra effort here. That's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to pause the video. I'm going to fill out my score sheet. I'm going to pick something from the flavor wheel. I'm going to try to do this under 15 minutes, and then we'll be back to talk about what I found in this beer. All right, I'm back. I've got my completed score sheet. I've got the one item that I circled to remind me to mention I got it from the beer flavor score sheet, and for the time, I clocked in at 12 minutes and almost 12 minutes and 12 seconds. And that is actually about my average for any beer, even in a competition situation. That's where the about 12 minutes later graphic came from if you've already been through the other study style sessions. And so how'd you do? If you did under 15, great. If you didn't, doesn't matter. As long as you got the practice in and got the score sheet completed, we'll work on getting them done faster and better and everything else that we can possibly do to make our judging exam a success when we get to it. We have got 26 categories to cover. This is just the end of number 2. We got a lot more practice to take in. So, all right, let's talk about what I got in this beer. Starting with aroma. For aroma, I said rich, dark, caramel, candy-like notes on the front. Light, bready, biscuity notes follow. Faint herbal hop character. Very light to light stone fruit-like esters of honeydew. Now, I'm not quite sure if a honeydew is a stone fruit or not, because I was trying to pick out what stone fruit I thought it was, and I was thinking apple, pear, and these other things, and I was like, wait, it's none of those. It's honeydew. So I put in honeydew, and I didn't go back and take out the stone fruit thing, because even if it's not a stone fruit, which I didn't even look up to find out, I will after this is all over. If I'm wrong, I don't think that's going to cost me points. I think the fact that I was very descriptive and pinpointed honeydew specifically is really the point gainer in that sentence. I could be wrong, but I think I was safe with that. Anyway, moving on. Let's see. Clean fermentation. Caramel character lends to a dark sugar note as the sample warms up. And I gave it a 9 out of 12. Appearance. Deep copper in color, leaning towards light brown. It was pretty amazing how different this beer looked outside of these incredibly bright, blinding studio lights in a normal room, because this beer looks so much darker. Didn't look like the dark beer I thought it was. It looks so much darker out there. A little behind the scenes thing. I leave the room because there's more room to spread out and write my score sheets when I do these. And in that room, it looks so much darker than it does under these studio lights. It's crazy. I'm really curious what it would be like outside with the lighting recommendation or with outside lighting, I should say, that the recommendations that we discussed early on in this training program suggest. I'm not sure. Might check that out one day. I don't know, though. I don't have any more bottles of Shiner Bock. Anyway, sorry, where was I? Low to medium, low head on pour that fell immediately. Had a slightly off-white head and a fine bubble texture. And I got a 3 out of 3 on that. Flavor, a moderate caramel flavor that covers a faint malt sweet character. Sweetness grows as the palate adjusts, and as the sample warms up, it moves into a honey-like flavor. That was a flavor I got off the beer flavor wheel, because there was a sweetness to it that it wasn't caramel, it wasn't sugar, and it wasn't malt. I'm like, what is this? I know what this is, but I can't put my finger on it. And I think the fact that there shouldn't be honey in this kept my mind as far away from honey as I could possibly be. And until I saw the word honey, I went, it's honey. There's a honey taste in this as this warms up. I like it. I don't think it's the style, but that's what the flavor was. And the beer flavor wheel came through again. So moving on, very faint to nearly spicy hop flavor on the tongue, a light bitterness in the finish that does not last in the aftertaste, and I give that a 16 out of 20. And mouthfeel, light to medium light and bodied, well carbonated with a high level of carbonation, an extremely light velvety texture that coats, no noticeable alcohol warmth, no astringent character, 5 out of 5 on that. Now, my overall impression, there's something here I want to point out I'm not sure about, but I wrote it anyway. Not the observation, but the way I went and said this. So we'll get to it. A very clean beer, caramel and sugar notes, a touch stronger than expected for style, a bit less specialty caramel or crystal malts, and a bit more dark roasted malts without being roast forward may help. Fruity ester characteristics inappropriate for style. This is the line. Fermenting at colder temperatures using a lager yeast can help if not already in practice. I kind of threw in that if not already in practice on the end as a safety net, because as we'll discuss as we go further into score sheets, and I even probably mentioned this, in fact, I know I mentioned this in the score sheet introduction section, never assume what the brewer did or didn't do. And that statement, until I put that on the end, was assuming they did not use lager yeast, and I do not know that. So I kind of backtracked a little bit as I was writing to put that disclaimer if you're not already doing that. I'm not sure that putting that in the beginning makes it any better or worse. That's a little iffy of a statement. I'm not sure I'd be that specific of using a specific or not using a specific ingredient that I think wasn't used when I'd come to my judging exam. I'm not entirely sure about that, but I do think at least I saved a little bit of what could be a big detraction of points by putting in if not already in practice. That one's a little iffy, so I'm going to work on that as we go along. I don't want to be sharing bad information in here. But, in the end, I'm sorry, I give that a 7 out of 10. 40 out of 50 puts it in the excellent range. It's my expectations of International Dark Lager. It's been a while since I've judged one, and been a long time since I read the guidelines of it. Even reading the guidelines, and refreshing my memory and remembering some things that I didn't quite remember about the style. Even with that updated information, it still wasn't quite perfectly or close to perfect on style. I'm not entirely sure any of these commercial examples can be perfect. I think that's by design and by choice. But this one fell a little shorter than I expected, and without having any kind of off flavor of aroma, like another beer I'm not going to talk about from this category. So it's an excellent beer, very good. I enjoyed it a lot, but it falls a little short of what I'd want this beer to be, and that actually helps me as well, because I know what I expect from this, from what I learned from studying this category, and I know what this beer is. If I have to judge a 2C for my judging exam, I can try to find where that beer better represents it in those cases and how it matches it where this beer does match it. So it's still a helpful exercise. Even when you have a beer that is completely out of style, you've at least gone through the exercise of knowing why it's out of style. So what the style is still imprints on your memory in some regard, even though you're not experiencing it in that beer, because you're trying to find it. It's not there. Here's why it's not there. Hopefully the next one you have will be better. And we're going to discuss that a lot more in the next category. Next category, if you're following along in order, category 3 is going to be Czech lagers. Except for one, you might know what that one is already. Out of the 4 subcategories, those beers are not sold, not only in where I am, but in this country. So we're going to have to practice 3 out of 4 beers at least. Yours might be 4 out of 4, at least 3 out of 4 beers that are not the style. And we're going to have to learn how to recognize when it's out of style and what it should be, and have that in our heads for when we go to the judging exam if we actually have one of those beers. So more on that in the next section. That's it for 2. 2 was fun. 2 was all over the place in the end. We probably I think we had the highest score, we had one of the lowest scores, and then we have one that's in between. This has been a good exercise for me. I've been really enjoying this. I hope you are too. Hope you're filling out your score sheets. Save those score sheets. I mentioned that before. Make sure you save them. We're going to need them later. It's going to be a few study sessions till we need them, but we'll need them. It's for a very important reason, and you'll find out why. So if you're new to this, if you just stumbled upon this is part of a much larger program for the BJCP training program that we have. It's a preparation program for both the online entrance exam and for the judging exam. So check us out at learn.brewersanonymous.org. And if you're new to homebrewing in the greater Orlando area and you've not heard of Brewers Anonymous yet, we are the 2023 Homebrew Club of the Year for the Florida circuit. So if you're looking for a club, you're looking to learn something and looking to have a lot of fun with a lot of really awesome people, check us out. You can check out our base website at brewersanonymous.org. All right, that is it. I'm moving on to Style Study 3, those Czech lagers. I hope I see you there. Until then, cheers.